In this lesson, we'll learn how to do the calculations for a two-sample t-test using Excel. This is by your old Uncle Frank. Before we do this problem, we'll actually start with a problem to show you how to do this. We'll start with the following problem. Does the forced expiratory volume for 1 second for patients with coronary artery disease differ between these two clinics? We'll assume that these are random samples from the patients in Clinic A and for the patients in Clinic B, and we'll do the formal 7-step hypothesis testing procedure to test to see if there is a difference. Now, I always start out with step 2. So we'll start out with step 2. Step 2 is the alternative hypothesis, or what it is we're hoping to show. And we're trying to show that the mean for Clinic A, the population mean for Clinic A, is not equal to the population mean for Clinic B. That is, that they differ in some way. Our step 1 is our null hypothesis, or HO. And our null hypothesis is everything else that could be true if step 2 is not true. So in this case, our HO would be that the population mean for the patients in Clinic A are equal to the population mean of the clinic patients in Clinic B. Step 3 is just to set our alpha. So we'll set our alpha at 0.05. We set it at 0.05 unless we're told otherwise in this course, because 0.05 is just so traditional. Step number 4 is we set up our rejection rule. Our rejection rule will be to say reject HO if. Now let's take a look at maybe a picture to get an idea. Here, since we're talking about different, we will reject the idea that it's the same if it's much lower or is much higher. So we're going to reject either on the higher or lower end. So this is a two-tailed test. So we'll have to write a rejection rule that would have where we would reject if our positive t-scores were over some amount or our negative t-scores were under some negative amount. Now the best way to do that is to do that in absolute values, because on the negative side, the higher the numbers following the negative sign, the lower the number. So in this case, we'll say reject HO if the absolute value of tcomp is greater than or equal to. Now here's where we finally use Excel to get this rejection rule number or critical value. So let's start out with Excel. The first thing we would do is we'd enter our data. I've entered the data for Clinic A in column A and the data for Clinic B in column B. And so first we enter our data. The next thing we do is we go up to Tools, and we go down near the bottom of the menu to Data Analysis, and we click on Data Analysis. Now if you don't have Data Analysis, you'll have to install it, and we talked about how to do that in an earlier lesson. So assuming you have Data Analysis and you click on it, you'll get this dialog box. Here we'll move our elevator button down near the bottom because the things in this dialog box are listed alphabetically, and we're looking for t-test, two-sample assuming equal variance. And that's the type of t-test that we're using in this textbook. We use a number of different kinds, but for two samples we only use t-test two-sample assuming equal variance, or we use the t-test paired for paired two-sample for means. This is an independent sample, so we'll use the t-test two-sample assuming equal variances. After we've clicked on that, then we'll click OK. Next comes up this dialog box. Here it asks us what our variable 1 is. And in this case, I'm telling it our variable 1 goes from A1 to A7. And our variable 2 goes from B1 to B8. Again, case doesn't matter. You could enter these in by typing it, or as we saw in earlier lessons, you could get these in these dialog boxes just by highlighting the numbers. So now that I've filled that out, the next thing I would fill out is I would put a check mark by labels. Because in my first row, which is A1 and B1, are the labels. It says Clinic A and Clinic B instead of numbers. And it's very important that I mark labels if I have A1 and B1, and if I really have labels in the first row. If I don't have labels in the first row, it's very important that I don't. We'll take a look at a little later on what would happen if we marked labels when we really didn't capture our labels, or if we don't mark labels. The next thing we want to do is check our alpha level. Now our alpha level is 0.05, so it's fine. If we were using a 0.01, we would change this to 0.01. The next thing is down there where it says Output Options. Right now, the radio button is in New Worksheet Ply. I like to move mine to Output Range. So you could click the radio button there, and that'll take it away from New Worksheet Ply and put it in Output Range. Then it's very important for the next step that we click in the rectangle to the right of Output Range. We click right here and make sure that we have this flashing line. If not, whatever we type will go up in one of our variable 1 range or variable 2 range, wherever we type last, instead of where we want it to go. So we do need to click in this box before we start typing. Now I'm going to put where I want my answer to start. In this case, I think I'll start it in D2. So all that's left now is to click OK.